And here we go. Ready? I am proud that my country and my church are both committed to the noble ideal of inclusion. Everyone should feel loved and respected. All people must share in the all rights. We couldn't dare to claim to be one nation under God if it were otherwise. Yet society and the church are falling short of this noble ideal by accepting one dominant cultural narrative that presumes to define those who are excluded. We are ignoring those who don't tidily fit into the prevailing cultural storyline. Want some examples? Moms and dads in lifelong, life-giving marriage, cherishing a large number of children who are routinely ridiculed and regularly stereotyped as threatening the planet. Not just threatening the planet, but because we're talking about 10 years of Francis, you can't forget the breed like rabbits comment by our own Holy Father. And the idea of a marriage, staying together, a lifelong marriage, because what originally started mine and Mark's conversation was I was telling him about my weekend up in the woods with my wife. And it's basically like if you're married and you have children, it's really important that you take time every so often to get away with just your spouse and spend alone time and remember why you like each other. Like, remember why you fell in love in the first place. Now, someone like Rob has 2 toddlers and a baby on the way. It's going to be insanely difficult in a situation like that. My kids are
we have at least 6 years until we'll get to do that.
But I went through that period already, right? So to get that opportunity to go and spend some time alone in an off-grid cabin where there was no internet and no TV, nothing. It was just time for me and Nicole to just actually sit and talk with each other and just be grateful for one another, for the gifts God has given us, and all
a whole weekend without text from Anthony.
I know. It was just like all of our kids are good. Like none of my kids are like me. Like, dude, I was a bad kid. Dude, I was thinking about it today. Like, I used to steal cars. Like, at like 15, 16, I would, like, my parents, if they left the keys in the house when they would go to bed, I would steal the car at 15 years old.
Oh, that's not Grand Theft Auto then. Never mind.
No.
You were talking about Grand Theft Auto.
No. But listen, then at 13 years old, I went up to the gas station with one of my friends, and there was an Indian guy working at the gas station, but he saw me all the time, and he knew me, and I'm like, I convinced this guy to let me borrow his car at 13 years old. And it was a driver's ed car that had a brake on the passenger side. Okay. I'm ripping down the road in this car doing like 60, and my friend slams the brake from the passenger side because it's a driver's ed car, and the car was a 180 on 347. It was the most insane thing I've ever done. If you use the keys, it's only joyriding, Kyle's. But yeah, it was like, I think about all the things I did as a kid. Like, I mean, I didn't finish high school. I was in trouble. I got thrown out of school because I was at the point where not only was I not learning, I was disrupting other kids from learning.
Wow.
So
That's almost difficult to believe. I mean,
so to have
what you're saying is,
to have 3 kids all with straight A's, really, that, and just, I mean, we were just so grateful for the life that God has given us, man. And it was a really awesome weekend. We had so much fun that as soon as we came home, we were like, all right, when's the next weekend we have to go do it again? And we found another cabin.
Folks,
and
they were unbearable. He was sharing with me the kind of conversations they're having, and I'm like, how am I going to?
We saw text messages. No way. Still nauseous.
Since we came back, she's texting me like love letters and stuff. It was like going on like one of those, what do you call them?
Meanwhile, Anthony's paying me money on the side to write love letters back for him.
I'm getting the insulin shots ready over here. It's ridiculous.
What's that Catholic marriage thing? It's like a Marriage Encounter or Marriage Alive. Like they have those 2 programs. One's Marriage Encounter and one's Marriage Alive. I remember my parents going I remember like when I was a kid, I still lived in Levittown, so I was like 11 years old, and my parents went on this Marriage Encounter weekend, and I remember they came back from it, and
nothing will destroy your marriage faster.
Well, they were writing each other love letters and stuff, and I just remember my dad being like, oh my gosh, I gotta write a love letter. It was like he was so not my mom was in her glory,
Wow.
Talk about a program designed by women for women.
Oh, definitely. But everything Novus Ordo is that way, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, fragile unborn babies who have no legal protection in most states, with all of us forced to pay for the taking care of their lives. Parents, especially struggling ones, who must pay constantly increasing taxes to support monopoly government schools and who are denied the right to use tax dollars to send their children to the school of their choice. Like, that's
wait, this is Dolan?
This is Dolan, man.
Yes. Yeah.
Citizens who, for ethical reasons, can't obey the tidal wave of bureaucratic decrees on healthcare and are forced to choose between their consciences and their jobs. I guess he's talking about like the Affordable Care Act that forced
and the vaccine mandates.
Vaccine mandates. Oh, I didn't even think
that's what that's about.
For ethical reasons,
that's Dolan. That's Dolan weighing in on the vaccine mandates.
Bro, I can't believe this is Dolan.
And what does that tell us? See, I've had
that he's taken the temperature of the room finally.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that the Cardinals as a body, which is usually defined by collegiality, they're done. Not just
Kyle, just so you know, you are our first super chat ever. Thank you so much, Kyle. No, go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I just get the feeling that something in the room has changed, and it's not going to be nobody's going to overthrow Francis or anything like that. But at the next conclave, like, it's going to get real. I would pay serious money to be a fly on the wall in that room in the Sistine Chapel and hear those discussions, because
I think you're right. I think people have Francis fatigue, and it's funny because today's the 10-year or yesterday was the 10-year, or the 13th was the 10-year anniversary of his election, and it's like you go through some of the moments. I mean, the rat breeding right like rabbits comment was one thing, but it's like there were so many of those instances where it was just like, oh man, like, and I remember even from like early on always having an uneasy feeling, but it took until the McCarrick thing for me to finally go, all right, this is just too much. Like, this is too much.
Hope all you succeeded in doing was giving YouTube $1.
Yeah.
That's all, because that's our money anyways.
You did it for the joke.
It was worth $1. It was worth
$1.
Well done. Well done.
Hey, no, because me and you got to whack the other $1 up.
All you did was give Anthony 50 cents.
Gave me 50 cents and YouTube $1. I think it's actually 30% YouTube gets, not 50.
Oh, is that why there's? Did you enable this? Because I thought we had it turned off.
I might have. I don't remember. You're so into doing this for charity, and I'm like, nah, man, we got stuff.
I'm always like, it's really not about making money. Anthony's over there. Well, I don't know.
Hey, Anthony, you remember what the Bible says? He did this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was in charge of the purse strings and he wanted to keep the money for himself. I always tell people when they always give me the Jesus was a communist argument, I said, no, there's a communist talked about in the Bible. And it's Judas Iscariot. Because he's going on and on about how we got to give this money to the poor, man. And it's all crap. He just wants to keep it for himself.
The funny thing is, before this episode went on, some guy was actually calling me a grifter on Twitter, and Margo was laughing because I was like, grifter? I was like, bro, I'm in debt. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. All right, let's go.
The only bailouts we get are from Australia.
We do have a guest coming on at 8:40, so let's try to at least get through the
article. That's right.
Okay, so citizens who for ethical reasons can't obey the tidal wave of bureaucratic decrees on... Oh, we went to that. A gay person trying his best with God's grace to live according to the biblical teaching, who hears church leaders call that morality unjust and oppressive. Think about what he just said there. So you're talking about the people who are trying to let, like a Joseph Chiambra, who left the church because he was so sick of Catholic leaders saying that the teaching in the catechism is unjust and that the language is too harsh.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy that Dolan's saying that. I might have to go.
He also just called out the entire nation of Germany there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I might have to go to St. Patrick's Cathedral and catch him, because he does Sunday Mass at 9 a.m. every Sunday at the St. Pat's Cathedral.
What do you think, out of all the things that you've seen, what do you think is the thing that for whatever reason has caused the show? What is the thing Francis has done or did that was the point of no return for people? I can tell you what it was for me, but it's like a lot of people, it's the Pachamama thing. For a lot of people, it was something maybe he wrote or something.
I've seen more.
Are you asking
besides,
when was I red pilled? Like, when was I finally like, I've had enough?
Yeah. When was that?
It was McCarrick.
It was McCarrick. Okay.
McCarrick.
But I feel like the church hung in there with him even after that for a while.
What were you gonna say, Rob?
I was saying that I've seen more like of your normie cats come around since Traditionis Custodes.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's like they wanted to believe all the best intentions until they saw him go after a small group of Catholics who honestly, yes, have problems, right? We do as a movement, but I think most normal Catholics who were familiar with traditionalists at least saw that we were just trying our best to live a Catholic life, and suddenly the Pope's, coming down, on top of us.
I think Traditionis Custodes exposed the cracks for me. To me, it made the average person look and go like, wait,
that's what I was going to say, Mark. Like, so I noticed a significant change in you with Traditionis. Like, you were very...
I was the apologist.
Yeah, you were patient.
It's not that bad. He may have misspoke. I misspeak all the time. Okay, the Pachamama thing was really somebody else's idea, and he got caught up. I was the apologist, and then he signed his name to that document. And I'm sorry, there was just no way a sane person could read that as anything other than a declaration of war. And I thought,
I think it's like. So for me, the thing, first off, who am I to judge threw me off, right? Then the breeding like rabbits thing threw me off. But all those things were like so caught in like a confusing way he said it. But when a Morris came out, it was like, what is this? Like, what does he do? Like, you knew he had bad intentions at that point,
Yeah. And you know how I explained that one away? I was like, well, that's an appendix and a letter to the bishops, and I'm not a bishop, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I worked really hard, and that's why I get irritated when people are like, "Oh, you're just anti-Francis." It gives me no great joy to say these things. I hate saying I hate criticizing the Pope,
because he is supposed to be the Holy Father. He's supposed to be our Father.
Right.
And yet now for the last, almost 3 years has done nothing but abuse us, right? Spiritually abuse us.
You want to know why I feel Summorum Pontificum came out when it did? I felt like after the sex abuse scandal stuff broke, Benedict XVI felt like, we got to give him something. We got to give him this. There's no good reason to deny them this. We need to throw the laity a bone, and we need to throw them a big one, and right now, because we're in trouble. I don't think you guys properly understand how angry people are. And then in Traditionis Custodes, I thought they couldn't even let us have that.
So the thing is,
they hate it that much.
The thing is, with the McCarrick thing, Mark, they had the sex summit right after that. You remember? So they call all the cardinals, and they have this big to-do. And instead of them, me and Rob just talked about this. Instead of them getting in sackcloth and ash and really begging for God's mercy, because the whole world would look different right now if they did that. Right. If they actually did beg God's mercy for their sins, like, the whole world would look different right now. I really do think that would be as powerful as a genuine consecration of Russia by the Pope when it was called for. Like, to actually say, God, we have sinned against you, please forgive. You know what they did instead? They made excuses and said that sex between consenting male adults of the same sex is totally fine. It's only bad when it's children. That's literally what they did. They went, and anytime a reporter went and asked, they said, well, we're not going to get into discussing consenting adults. It's like, you guys don't even want to acknowledge
Oh no, they
interactions are sinful.
What they did is they went into a 20-minute USCCB meeting. They came up with some new reporting procedures and then patted themselves on the back at how they cured and solved everything. And the great thing about them is they don't have to listen to anybody, so they have no idea that we're all still really angry with them about that.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, Francis has done nothing but protect his friend Zanchetta,
Rupnik. I mean, it's crazy what's going on over there. Yeah. So, all right, let's keep going here. Let's see. I'm going to skip one because I want to go to this one, which is really awesome. Young people who are spiritually thirsty for a sense of awe, reverence, and transcendence, but who have difficulty finding a church to satisfy their needs. He is talking about the traditional Latin Mass. I mean,
big time.
We are so sick of tambourine masses. It's not even funny. I mean, except us on this show who love to play Novus Ordo music, but most people aren't like us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
hot take.
Yeah. Bring it, Jake. Mark. Well, I was going to say that, like, the thing is, I'm not concerned about the future of the Latin Mass. It's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
The thing that hurt me about Traditionis Custodes is I felt like after they had just learned this lesson, supposedly, but it was just another sign that I will always love a church more than it will ever love me. And that hurts. And it makes me feel stupid. And it makes me feel like a battered wife. And, and it was unnecessary. And I think there are a lot of bishops and cardinals who are not traditionalists who feel like that's crap. Come on. That's crap. We don't do things like that.
Well, Enoch has 100% right. Okay. So I would have never found the traditional Latin Mass without Francis.
Absolutely.
Like, there are good things that come under persecution. I mean, that's just what happens. Like, there always are going to be. Look, we've had it too easy for too long, and God's given us a little bit of a rough run here for our own good. It's like a father who doesn't punish his children isn't really a good father. So what you're seeing is a bit of chastisement, and this isn't even bad. I still have my Latin Mass. I mean, it hasn't been taken away yet, No. Jake says we haven't had a good pope in 100 years. That means Pius XII wasn't a good pope. That means
Pius XII
I disagree with
is the one I would argue for. The 11th, not so much. Benedict XV, not so much. Those after Pius XII, obviously not so much. But Pius XII, not perfect, but
I actually didn't have a problem with any of them. Maybe some things about Paul VI, but a lot of
things about Paul.
Yeah.
VI.
Well, here's my problem.
Was Anthony. As bad as Francis.
Here's my problem, Anthony. It's the Vatican and the stories that come out. You can never know what's real and what's not. And I have to assume the best until I have to assume the best until I can't assume the best anymore. So it's easy to do when I just don't. I don't know. Who knows what the truth of that is, and I'm going to assume the best. Problem with Francis is I'm out of wiggle room now. I don't. He's not giving me a lot to work with here. I don't know.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to take Enoch's point and really understand. Like, I'll tell you, man, I would still be a lighthouse Catholic media guy. I'd still be on the George Weigel First Things train. Like, that's where I would be right now. I'd probably be all for the war in Ukraine, bro. Like, I was a neocon. I'm not even kidding. I was a neocon George Weigel guy. Like, that's where I was.
You'd be watching PragerU videos more than Taylor Marshall videos, huh?
Yeah, probably. But who knows what Taylor Marshall would be like?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, you have to understand, it took the McCarrick thing for Taylor to break. Taylor was think about it. Like, Taylor was calling the SSPX schismatic back then. It took the pandemic for him to really look. He started softening his position on the society after McCarrick, but it took the pandemic for him to just full out go, "Yo, I support the society." Like, that's what it really took for him to get to that point, because he wasn't getting the sacraments from his own parish priest in the fraternity of St. Peter. Yeah. So I think he was only able to get the sacraments out of society priests. So I think, these things happen, right? So
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it's often presumptuous of us to believe that we don't deserve chastisement. I know I for sure do. So
dude,
it's
Enoch. This is a brilliant idea. Like, if Francis never became Pope, Taylor would still be towing
I like that.
the hermeneutic of continuity line. I think.
You know what's ironic? Never mind. I'm not gonna. I was gonna give a Lofton comment, but I'm not going to.
I don't think your podcast or my podcast would exist. I can't imagine that I would have started a podcast if everything was great in the church.
No way.
I'd probably be the most lukewarm. Yeah. Maybe I'm still lukewarm. I don't know.
The podcast thing, I've always wanted to do broadcasting. Like, I've always thought.
Same.
What
got you into it? What got you into it? Who?
Honestly, listening to Opie and Anthony growing up. Like, I was a young guy.
Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh too. 100% Rush.
I idolized Rush, man.
I used to love talk radio, man. I loved it. And I always wanted to be like somebody that was able to do it. And those first the first year, well, no, less than that. Like the first 3-4 months before Rob joined, I was a nervous wreck, dude. Like, I would have to pre-record. I would edit things. It was so hard for me to get this thing out. Rob changed everything for me. Rob made it where I was able to just have a natural conversation. I didn't have to pre-record. It really did. Me and Rob teaming up together made this thing possible. I couldn't have done it without him. And
I always know you're buttering me up for something.
No, I just waiting for somebody to put a rainbow in.
What new crazy thing do you want to do now?
Waiting for somebody to put a rainbow in the comment section.
I don't know if they can.
All right, so
I remember Paul Harvey for sure.
That was the big one. Let's see. Relief agencies labeled as lawbreakers by members of Congress for welcoming, feeding, and housing refugees. Our beloved elders near the end of life who are coaxing into feeling useless, a burden with euthanasia as the answer. Bro, we have been getting inundated by this end of life suicide in Canada, right? Like the MAID program, the medical assistance in death in Canada has been so horrific, and it's in the U.S.
Their third highest cause of death in Canada right now.
It's crazy.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah, no, Canada, I think it's like the number
it's
two.
It's either
two or three.
Cancer. That's dangerous, man. People
cancer,
need to get
heart
out of
disease, and then medically assisted suicide.
There's a crazy there's a crazy story about this girl who transitioned to become a guy. The Canadian government paid for all of it, and then had had transition regret and wanted to transition back. The federal government wouldn't pay for it. They said, no, but we'll give you end of life suicide.
Right.
And this person, I forget which way they transitioned or whatever, but the person actually is taking them up on it, and they're gonna do the MAID program because the government paid for her or him to get the surgery and won't pay for them to reverse it because they have the transition regret.
Yeah, sometimes I have to feel like Mao and Stalin are in hell right now just doing this.
Yeah, right.
Like the slow clap when they stand, because I think
they look at each other like, did you ever think that was
they have got to be amazed at what we have accomplished here. They've got to be amazed.
Yeah, it's nuts. Let's see. Cops who face danger daily, who see their colleagues killed and wounded, their resources shrinking, and criminals they apprehended released in an hour. He's talking about the New York catch and release program. I mean, he's
Chicago,
in New York, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
But no, Mark, they overhauled the bail system in New York to the point where you get arrested and you are out within an hour. I don't care if it's a violent crime. I don't care what it is. It's one of the most heinous bills they've ever put forth in New York, man. It's crazy. And this Mayor Adams, who we just got after de Blasio, came in on this whole, I'm gonna get crime under control. He's been 10 times worse than anybody we've ever had. It's crazy.
I don't understand these people in Chicago who can't evict people who are trespassing. If somebody's trespassing in your home, the cops can't make them leave.
Yeah.
You can't even argue with it. It's so stupid.
We destroyed your life. We destroyed your culture. We won't fix it, but have you considered letting us destroy you too?
Yeah,
It really is. Remember when people talked about death boards with Obamacare and people said that doesn't exist with any other social medical system?
They were just 5 years too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So parents who worked 2 jobs and saved for decades to send their children to college and struggled to pay back the loans they had to take, only to see their neighbors with weekend homes have their loans forgiven. These good people tell us they are also marginalized and excluded. Rarely do I find them bitter, angry, or judgmental. They too want a society that is inclusive, not merely for the groups now chic to defend, but for all. Cardinal Dolan is the Catholic Archbishop of New York. I just thought what Mark was saying because Mark didn't even read that article, but he when he and I spoke first off, his wife was in the car and he had me on speaker and I'm talking about my wife, like how amazing she is. So he texts me later, he goes, my wife thinks you're the most amazing.
Yeah, my wife thinks you're a very lovely man. And I was like, you son of a
I didn't know his wife was listening in. So but yeah, so I told him, I said, yo, you should check out the article by Dolan. And that's when we started talking about he started feeling a little bit of hope, almost like there's this swelling of resistance amongst the bishops that might be coming down the pike. And I personally think you're going to get a Cardinal Sarah next. That's really what I think.
Look, it all boils down to courage. The problem in the modern world is that nobody has any courage anymore, or very few people have any courage anymore. But the thing about courage is it's contagious. You know, if you see one person stand up, you'll get the courage to stand up too. And now there's 2 people standing up. And, you know, I do feel like there's some hope, and I feel like something has changed. And we're not out of the fight, obviously, but I feel like at least we're finally in it. You know,
you guys know how we got Pius X as Pope, right?
No, but something tells me you're going to tell me. I don't know.
Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria, the second to last Habsburg of Austria, heard who they had voted for and used the traditional Habsburg veto on the papal.
We're gonna cut our little conversation short. We